Hello everyone, welcome to the Bridge Culture. Today we have the presentation about UK, England with the teacher Liliana Alexandre. Okay, she's coming in a minute, but I would like to give some advice. We are going to start with the presentation during an hour, and then we are going to open with the questions. Why? Because we have a lot of information, so the teacher prefers that the questions start after the presentation. So we have 1 hour of the presentation, the questions, and the bioenergetic work. Okay? Please take notes, and then you can do the questions. Thank you very much. Welcome to the Bridge. Please, thank you for your presence, Liliana.
Thank you. Okay, everyone, good afternoon. Good afternoon here. I don't know about there. My name is Liliana Alexander. Thank you, Virginia. We are going to start our presentation now. And as you will see, this presentation we start by talking about the UK, the United Kingdom, but then it's kind of funneling to England and then to London, because most of the things happen in London. It's like 84%, I'm not mistaken, of the population is in London. So I hope you can make notes, because the beginning I'm going to go a bit fast, but this information will be available for you to check afterwards, and anything you can always come to me or send me questions. I'm totally available for whatever it is that you need. Okay, so let's start. So here's just some of the slides are just images to kind of introduce you to the British Isles, because United Kingdom is we tend to think a bit just of England, but it's actually 4 countries, right? And we call these the British Isles in a geographic sort of way, right? Then there's the Union flag, which already represents the union of these countries. So you have St. George's Cross representing England, and then you have St. Andrew's Cross representing Scotland, and you have the St. Patrick's Saltire representing Ireland, Northern Ireland, and they didn't have kind of much about Wales to put on the flag, but that's the Union Jack. Okay, so we're going to give you lots of general information, and then we're going to talk about holothosines, about UK Holokarma, group karmic cycle, holokarmic responsibilities, challenges and tips to intermissivists, and then we'll finish with questions and answers and energetic work. So the land, the British Isles is a group of the United Kingdom. Actually, it's a group of 4 countries, as we said before. There were previous kingdoms, that's why it is called United Kingdom. That's the land for you. And then geographically, the British Isles consist of actually innumerable isles, more than 4,000, considering those that are inhabited. 210 of them are inhabited. And then there's an additional more than 6,000 on high tide. Great Britain is something that sometimes is called also to the country or to the islands, because in early 18th century the name Great Britain started, appearing, because that's when the realms of England and Scotland got together and were governed by the same sovereign. Can you hear me well? I hope. Yeah, sound is good. Okay, so today politically, the UK consists of 4 countries, and the location is Northwest Europe. The surface 242.495 square kilometers, and the population is this year already 66,831 million. So a lot of people. Right, so let's talk a bit about UK demographics, religion and government. So the majority of the UK population is situated in England, which is actually 84% of the total population, and then Scotland appears behind with just 8.4%. The United Kingdom has a diverse set of overseas-born populations as well, which means people from different countries that live in the UK, and some of them already born in the UK but from different origins. And on top, the top 10 are Poland, India, Pakistan, Romania, Germany, Bangladesh, Italy, South Africa, and China, out of 217 countries. So you have people of 217 countries living there, particularly in London. 49% of the UK population is irreligious, contrarily to what we tend to think. Because you still find on everyday life, there's lots of people that are Anglican, there's lots of people that are Catholic. And my idea initially was that, oh, maybe 50-50. But actually, according to the census, only 17% are Anglican Christians, another 17% have a Christian faith, but non-Anglican. 8% are Roman Catholic, 5% are from Islam, and other religions, you know, even smaller percentage. So 49%, almost half of the population is irreligious. So it means that this is a secular state, right? The government is a constitutional monarchy, a parliamentary democracy since late 17th century, so since 1688. According to the Bill of Rights and the Act of Settlement, these are important laws in the country. And this means that the sovereign, which is the head of state, has limited power, limited power of the monarch, dates already from the times of Magna Carta, which was signed actually in the beginning of the 13th century. So it's always been very controlled. The power has always been very controlled by a number of people, right? By a parliament and the government. Right, so the language. English is considered an Indo-European language and the second most spoken language in the world next to Mandarin. So if you think Mandarin is 1/3 of the planet Earth, then you have English represents 1/3 of the planet Earth as well. So 1 million words are currently in the thesaurus, which keeps being updated every week with new words. Maybe the Urban Dictionary contributes a lot to that. And some people tend to think, oh, it's just 400,000 words, or it's just 600,000 words. But no, actually it's already 1 million words. But fortunately, we only need to learn a small percentage, not, you know, to be able to speak, you know, on today, everyday life, right? So English has become that much spoken because it's the language of science and technology, the language of the internet, the language of business worldwide. So that says a lot. And 60% of English words have Greek or Latin roots, like 52%. There's a percentage there that comes from French. The English use lots of French words as well. So if you consider science and technology, then the figure goes up to 90%, okay? But this means that, for instance, for some like Portuguese speakers here, more than half of the words, we already know them because they're similar to Portuguese, they just have different ending. So and when you are talking about science, it's even easier. It is called a Germanic language for some reason, but the Germanic languages are distant cousins. So there's very little of German and Danish, and there is a bit of Danish, there's a bit of, you know, in the language, but there's a lot more of Roman and Greek and French stuff there. So it is also the first or the official language in 54 countries. So we tend to think of America and England, but actually 54 countries, so that including the United States, have English as the main language or the official language. 53 of these countries constitute what is called the Commonwealth. Right, just to give you some images, London is a very, very old city, you know, and the whole UK, right? It's been inhabited since the Neolithic, right? This is an image on the left, top left, Scarborough in Scotland, and down on the right you have Stonehenge, which most people have seen, you know, from photos, or people that have visited the UK probably have visited Stonehenge as well. But, you know, next to Stonehenge you have, for instance, in Amesbury, this is Amesbury, Salisbury, but close to Stonehenge there are other sites where you can see this type of stones, so you have a very clear idea that, you know, how old, you know, it goes. Right, so a little bit of history, because we can't spend a lot of time on it. There's things that are most well known probably abroad. So initially the majority of Britain was Celtic, so before the Roman invasions. Then you had the German invasions, so that's the Angles and the Saxons, these tribes. And then you have Viking raids, so from Sweden, from the Norse, the Danes, you know, and then you had the Norman conquest. So it's a lot of invasions, so it's like a mixed race, actually. What you have there is a mix of many different peoples. And then we could talk about mythic King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table and Merlin and all that stuff, but we don't have time. But if you go to the UK, try to have some time to visit this part, Tintagel, right? This Tintagel is really, really nice. We could talk about Albert the Great. You now have, you know, series on TV about, you know, the Vikings and all that stuff, and the Last Kingdom, that give you an idea of what happened in Wessex and the city of Winchester back in the 9th century. And this King Albert the Great, which was probably the first real king of England, because he tried to unite East Anglia with Wessex, which were the two biggest counties. We could talk about William the Conqueror in the 11th century, another very important king, or Edward the Confessor in the same century. We could talk about the Magna Carta. All the laws in England date back to the Magna Carta, which is a document from early 13th century, from 1215. We could talk about the Act of Supremacy, which made the religious union of Anglicans and Catholics during Queen Elizabeth I's reign. Then everybody already heard certainly about Richard Lionheart, which was this king that spent most of his life in crusades, right, with the Templars and things like that. So that's back to the 12th century. Then the most famous dynasty is probably the Tudors, right? Which its exponent, which is Elizabeth I, and her reign was called the Golden Age of England, you know, the islands, because there was a lot of prosperity and a lot of peace compared with previous reigns. So actually, the most famous kings of England were queens, right? And that tells you a little bit of what, you know, is the role of the woman in this society. It's strong. So you had very strong queens, like the most well-known is probably Elizabeth I in the 16th century. But going back, you have Boudica, you know, the time of the Celts, Eleanor of Aquitaine, which was the mother of Richard Lionheart, and other queens like Philippa of Hainault, Elizabeth of York, which is a kind of founder of the Tudor dynasty, Queen Victoria, and even today Elizabeth II, who has been in government.
Tipo de seminário. Olá. Pessoal da Conscientiologia que está fora do Brasil.
So Elizabeth II has been in government for more decades than any other king or queen, right? Past 60 years. So the country has also participated actively in 2 world wars, which has a lot of implications, even in the Holokarma, right? As we will talk a bit later. Now, economics. The economy is highly developed and globalized, and it's market-oriented, so it's everything about business. And 1.2% was the growth last year, 2018. It is the 5th largest economy on the planet, and the service sector dominates, particularly finances and tourism. The world's largest financial center is London. The 2nd largest aerospace industry on the planet is in the UK. Resources include North Sea oil and gas. London is the largest city in Europe by GDP. Unemployment is just 4.7%, which is quite good considering these days, you know, and that is from information from 2017. And you have a very low inflation generally, so it's generally around 2%. So in 2018 it was 2.4% only. Interest rates are also generally low, so you have here 0.75% currently. And I said before, the UK is a member of the Commonwealth, actually created the Commonwealth, right? It's also a member of the European Union so far, right? Still, we don't know until when. It's a member of the G7 and a member of G20, the International Monetary Fund, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, the World Bank, the World Trade Organization, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, and the United Nations. So all that is not just a piece of information, it tells you a lot of the history of it has to do with, you know, the Holokarma of the nation, right? If we think about it and you go deeper and study these things, what are the repercussions? They are huge for the whole planet, right? Okay, so now this is just a little photo that shows you in the First World War, these were, you know, the troops that participated. You have Britain, USA, Australia, India, Germany, France, Russia, Italy, and Japan. So one of each for you to have a little look. So that's a photo, really old photo. Right, so what is the Commonwealth that we've been discussing, and it has so many implications in the Holokarma of the nation? The Commonwealth of Nations is a unique politically free access of 53 member states, nearly all of them former territories of the British Empire. So they've been previous colonies, and then they have become today like associated, and the idea that everyone has the same value, is together, and the idea Commonwealth, the word means richness for all, right? Common for everyone. So it was formalized through the Balfour Declaration in 1926, so beginning of the 20th century, first quarter of the 20th century. And it follows the decolonization of the British Empire with increased, you know, self-governance of territories. And after World War II, in 1949, it was modernized, the community was modernized, and, you know, some rules were established, you know, like everyone is free and equal, right, in the Commonwealth. That means 53 countries. And we are talking countries as big as Australia, which are countries and continents. We are talking Canada, we are talking India, so huge populations, right, which speak English as first language, and there's lots of things in common. So the human symbol of this free association is the head of the Commonwealth, which is currently Queen Elizabeth II, right? So the Queen is actually head of state in 60 of the member states out of these 53. And then there's 30 other members that are republics and 5 other reigns that have other monarchs, okay, that are monarchies as well. So the member states, they have no legal obligations to one another, but they are united by things as important as the English language, the history, the culture, and the shared values of democracy and human rights, all envisaging world peace, liberty, equality, and free trade. So this is a precursor, actually, of the European Union. The European Union is a different thing. It's just about countries in Europe, but the Commonwealth exists since 1926. Okay, so this is a precursor. So the Commonwealth covers 20%, that means 1/5 of the world's land area and all 6 continents. And it has 1/3 of the world population. So you have 1/3 China, 1/3 Commonwealth. And then let's talk a little bit about education, right? Knowledge is great, as they say. Knowledge is great in Britain, right? So the UK is home to 4 of the top 10 universities in the world. That includes Oxford University, which is the oldest English university in the world. Cambridge comes second, and the Imperial College of London as well. So in the UK, the minimum years you are at school are 16. So as I was saying, the oldest English university in the world is Oxford. And then you have 156 universities and colleges, 15 of which in London. So University of London itself consists of 17 universities per se and Royal Academies, among which the famous Royal Central School of Speech and Drama, Courtauld Institute of Art, the Institute of Cancer Research, London Business School, the London School of Economics and Political Science, the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, the Royal Academy of Music, the Royal Veterinary College, and the School of Oriental and African Studies. London is also home to a famous college that's called St. Martin's Central School of Art and Design in London. So it's the most famous art school in the world. So everything you can think, since modern painters, fashion designers like Alexander McQueen and things like that, everyone studied in this school, right? Actors, it involves all arts, yeah? So science, literature, and philosophy. Science, 7 of the 10 top current most influential scientists are British, and some are Nobel Prizes, right? You have, for instance, Tim Berners-Lee, the creator of the World Wide Web. You have Richard Dawkins, which is he's an evolutionary biologist. You have Stephen Hawking, cosmologist, physicist as well, right? You have James Goodall, which is a primatologist and an anthropologist. And obviously, the UK was home for, to Isaac Newton and Charles Darwin, right? That we study so much. In literature, literature is one of the things that the UK is most famous for. They're really strong in this area. So it's home to Dickens, Woolf, Austen, Rowling, Orwell, Tolkien, Carroll, Fleming, Green, lots of names, right, that you can see later. And also very strong in poetry, right? Poetry and theater. So you have the famous Shakespeare, which obviously is probably the best, the most well-known poet and playwright of all time, the whole world. But besides Shakespeare, you also have Shelley, Byron, Yeats, Keats, Wordsworth, Coleridge Taylor, Milton. So many people probably have already read some of their poetry. And in philosophy, you have also, the most famous is probably Bertrand Russell, but you have other philosophers that are also very interesting, like John Stuart Mill, Jeremy Bentham, Ludwig Wittgenstein. He lived a lot of time in London, so is considered from that, in the UK. So Karl Popper, William Godwin, Mary Wollstonecraft Godwin, which was the mother of Mary Shelley, the wife of poet Shelley. So you have Mary Midgley, Anscombe, Derek Parfit, Isaiah Berlin, Robert Bacon, Samuel Alexander, Philippa Foot. So these are already more current, these last names, because I put everything like in, in a sequence in time, so to speak. Okay. So some of these people wrote really interesting things about ethics. So some of the writings are really interesting, right? So here's London, the old image that we know of it, right? The Parliament Houses, the Big Ben there, but this is also London. Okay, there are many Londons in London. So this is the financial district, and also in the center of the city, also in the city of London. So London was called Londinium in the time of the Romans, and London is old and new, everything put together and living together, right? So there's about 2,000 years of history, and its heart was rebuilt in the 7th century after a big fire that destroyed the city. And then obviously there was in World War II the Blitz that also destroyed the city again. So that already mid-20th century. But it continues to grow, to evolve, to be refurbished all the time, and it's moving in the future, right? The future with all these new buildings is already changing the city's skyline very dramatically, because a few years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when you were close to the Thames and you used this, you saw the skyline was one, and now it's a totally different city, right? Very much changed. So the average age of inhabitants in London is 33.9, so everybody very young. As we said, it's a member of the European Union. It is the financial capital of Europe, and its currency is the pound sterling. It is not the euro, right? They never adhered to the euro because the pound is the pound, as they say, and the pound is stronger than the euro, okay, even today. So languages, besides English, 500 other languages are spoken in London. That means people from all over the world, all cultures, all religions, all countries are represented in this city. This gives us an idea of inclusion, which is something that living there a number of years, I felt personally. They are welcoming and you feel included. So I think this is one of the details that gives them a vocation for universalism, right? So virtually every country, religion and culture live together in the UK with considerable growing populations, particularly in London. And most of the time, everything, is really harmonious, right? So it can be stressful. It is very stressful because there's a lot of people work very hard and there's a lot of bustling around, but it's inclusive and it's good. It feels good to live in a place. I like it to live in a place with so many people, so many diversity, a lot of diversity. It's really great. So just a few photos here. So you have on top left St. Paul's Cathedral at the end of the Millennium Bridge, which is a bridge there are no cars, you just walk, okay, between South Bank and North Bank. And then on the right you have an aerial view of the Thames and its bridges. It's many bridges. And then down left you have the famous Hyde Park, which has a river of its own, sort of a lake that is so big, it's a river, really. So in the summer you can do, you know, boating, swimming, anything right there. So that's the beach for us, the Londoners, because you don't have, the closest beach is an hour away from London, it's Brighton. So when you cannot go to the beach, you go to the park, and the park is full of people like penguins, you know, everyone in the sun, you know, and enjoying the summer breeze, right? And then here down on the right, you have Little Venice, which is the Regent Canal, and people live in those boats, right? Some boats are owned, some boats these days are for rental. So you have people living in the water all the time. So they have a big connection with the sea and everything that is water. Okay, so there are some things that sometimes people don't realize. I wanted to bring something, you know, to make you think a bit more and see a bit more if you happen to visit or to go and live there. So a bit of London by numbers. You have 8 million inhabitants in London. That was in 2014. Now probably it's more. And you have 2 million of commuters that come to work in London and then leave at the end of the day back to their homes, right? But they live around London. So anything that takes like 2 hours of transport to come to work and another 2 hours to go back home is considered normal. And if it's less than that, you're very fortunate, right? But there are still other possibilities. Like I had you know, my work, and I got a flat close to where I work, so I could walk to work. So you can still do that. You can rent and you be close to work. So London has 5 airports, so that gives you also an idea of the size of the city. So the main airport, the international Heathrow, but then you have City Airport, Gatwick, Luton and Stansted. It has 8 royal parks. These are the lungs of London. They are not 2 but 8. Royal parks, Hyde Park, St James, Regent, Green Park, so lots of them. Richmond is a bit further, you know, out of the city, but it's still London. Greenwich as well, and Victoria Park. I used to live close to Victoria Park, right across the road. It has 33 bridges over the Thames. So among which the most famous are London Bridge, Millennium Bridge, that one that I showed you that you can walk. And you have Waterloo Bridge, Blackfriars and Vauxhall Bridge. You have 240 theaters, 750 cinemas, right? That was 2013, 2014, the figures. You have 170 museums, including Tate Britain, famous Tate Britain and Tate Modern, if you like modern art, the famous British Museum, but also the National Maritime, the National History, and, you know, the Science Museum as well, National Gallery, the Design Museum, the Imperial War Museum, you know, the Transport Museum. So also lots of art galleries, and the most famous include Saatchi Gallery, where you have a lot of modern art, the National Gallery, the National Portrait Gallery, the Wallace Collection, which is also a fabulous collection, the Serpentine Gallery, which is in Hyde Park, the Royal Academy of Arts, the Dali Exhibition, and the Institute of Contemporary Arts. You have also, depending on what you like to do, you know, you have everything that you may wish in London. You have over 100 street markets, right? And some of them, they are daily markets, others are just weekly markets. The one most people know, or the ones that most people know, especially the tourists, are Covent Garden, which is right in the center of the city, and Borough Market, which is mainly a food market. And Portobello Road is also very well known. But you also have Brick Lane, Broadway Market, Camden Lock, Islington Farmers, Bethnal Green, and even Greenwich. If you go to Greenwich, go to the observatory, which is fantastic, and you can go to the Maritime Museum, and you can visit the market, and you can have a wonderful full day just in Greenwich, okay? So this is just a map of the London Underground, which the Londoners call the Tube. It now has 11 lines. So when I was there, it had 10. Now it has an additional one, 11 lines. And I've just moved out 4 years ago, right? So it has one more line. Still a few more numbers. If you just stay in and watch TV, you have Freeview, for instance, which is cable TV, gives you 50 channels plus 10 in HD, in high definition. If you have FreeSat, which is satellite TV, you have 131 channels plus 11. If you have Sky, you also have loads of channels. So if you want to stay home, there's a lot of things to watch. And English, proper English, main 5 channels are BBC 1 and BBC 2, which the English call the Bib, right? BBC is the Bib. And then you have Channel 4, and you know, ITV is well very famous. If we are talking radio, lots of people still like radio, but it's not a very strong thing, I think. But anyway, there's still 40 BBC radio channels and plus 250 commercial stations. You have, if you want to go out, you have very good transport system. So you have 8,000 buses to 700 different locations or different routes, right? If you travel by train, you have 339 train stations, including the main ones, which are St. Pancras International, where you can take the Eurostar to go to France, for instance. And you have King's Cross, right close to St. Pancras and King's Cross are together, basically. And then you have Paddington, Liverpool, Waterloo. Now there's a British institution that is not just English, but there's also Scottish and Irish, which are the pubs. London has 1,220 pubs and gastropubs, okay? In 2001, there was a lot more, 4,835. So now a lot less. What does this mean? The pub is an institution because that is the abbreviation of public house. And if you invite friends to have a drink at the end of the day, you don't invite them to your house, you invite them to the pub. So the pub is like the living room for the British, okay? So you take everyone there and you see that all pubs are always, you know, full of people. People get out of their jobs, they go to the pub before they go home. The problem is that with that, people drink a lot. Most of it's beer, right? You have even your local, as you call it, the pub in your street, has no less than 4 different beers for you to try. They're all draft beers, right? But if you go to a bigger pub, you have 8, 12 different ones, and nobody's talking about bottles or cans. They're talking about draft beer, you know? Shopping, okay. So you have even pubs that have their own artisan beers. They still produce their beers. And you have the gastropubs where you can eat very good food. Some of them are even Michelin stars, and you know, very famous chefs producing what is called the new modern English cuisine, right? Which exists. And some of the chefs have programs on TV, regular programs on TV, to teach people how to cook again, okay, which is a habit that had died, but now, you know, it's coming back. Right, so you have 86,627 restaurants and eateries in London, and top chefs as known as Jamie Oliver, Nigel Lawson, Gordon Ramsay, Anthony Warren Thompson, Michel Roux, which is a French guy, James Martin, Delia Smith, Marco Pierre White, Heston Blumenthal, and the late Anthony Bourdain was one famous English restaurant. So, okay, so you have many events happening in London all the time. You know, festivals in the summer, there's loads of festivals everywhere. Many of them summer festivals. And then there is something that the English absolutely love. So the main sports for Londoners is shopping, gardening, and bargain hunting, which seem a little bit strange, but it's practiced as sport almost. So this means people shop a lot. Everyone wants to have a garden or has one, and they love to find, pieces for the house, antiques and stuff like that. All this is the Chelsea Flower Show, which is an annual event where you have lots of beautiful stuff to see. London is also home to the London Fashion Week. There's many department stores, mainly in Oxford Street, which is the main shopping center, but you also have another 57 shopping centers. There's 112 bookshops, and it's home to the BAFTA Film and Television Awards. There's also lots of street art, like Banksy is the most famous street artist probably in the world. It was home for the Olympics in 2012, and it is home to the lovely games, they call it, which is football or footy, right? So there's also lots of tennis, Wimbledon, and lots of horse racing. You have annual Ascot race, and there's races happening all the time. Right, so some cultural and spiritual aspects. AI and robotics is strong in London. The health system is free, right? The health and care system is free. There's lots of alternative medicine and new techniques as well being practiced, and some are even, it's common for your GP, your physician, your general practitioner, as they call it, GP, to prescribe you for Pilates or art lessons or acupuncture or relaxation classes, as much as they give you a choice. Or do you want to take pills or do you want to do this? Right, so that gives you an idea. Another interesting thing is 500 churches were converted into homes. So there's less churches and homes being built in churches. This is a very funny thing of the 21st century. And then there's many people that study and practice regularly yoga, meditation, healings, psychic healing and things like that. And others that are into darker things like witchcraft and other new age approaches to spirituality. And other techniques like Alexander technique, Feldenkrais method, and things like that. So there's a lot of spiritual centers in London, doing different things. If you go back in history, you have, from time the Celts, the Druids. Then we can talk about Swedenborg. We could talk about Theosophy and Madame Blavatsky, who lived in London, actually, where I lived when I lived there. The SPR, which is a Society for Psychic Research. So you could talk a lot of spiritualism is something that comes. The origin is Kardecism, but it's practiced in a different way than Kardecism. But it's considered a religion. It is still strong in the UK. So you have the SNU, the Spiritual National Union, founded in 1901, and you still have 34 spiritualist churches. Psychic News Magazine is a magazine that exists since 1932, so something really old. You also have some famous UK mediums that do psychic surgery, for instance, some of them. And some of them have programs on TV, regular programs on TV. So you have Gordon Smith, Derek Acorah, Tony Stockwell, very well known, and Colin Fry, who died recently. So if you want to study these things in London, you have 12 master degrees in spiritual psychology in the UK. And you have colleges like the College of Psychic Studies and the Arthur Findlay College. There's University of Metaphysics as well. And there are mind, body, and spirit festivals regular, at least twice a year, if not more. London also apparently has a Serenissimos. Okay, it seems to be an Indian guy living in the Marylebone area, quite central. And this was confirmed by Dr. Waldo Vieira in 2014. We don't know, we don't have a name, but we know that this guy is kind of opening, channeling, helping India. The Londoner, yes, that is the true Londoner. Yeah. Okay, so some disabling aspects. It is a very stressed nation, okay? 74% of the people have a stress condition, sometime in their life. There is something called SAD, which is not just, being sad, but it's a seasonal affective disorder, which affects most people or many people there. And there are then stress-induced diseases, and the worst probably are anxiety and depression. So there are stress-induced musculoskeletal disorders as well. I've got one, for instance. Then there's a lot of alcoholism because as people start drinking, when people go to the pubs, they take the whole family. And so children start drinking 12, 13 years old. And to drink well in the UK is like drink until you vomit. So it's horrible, right? There's a lot of drug addiction as well because there's prescribed drugs and non-prescribed drugs, recreational drugs, and everybody, there's lots of people that go into that. There's also a lot of gambling addiction, right? So lots of things that not so good. So almost everywhere you have betting shops, almost every street, And then there's terrorism. There is current growing levels of poverty and inequality, unfortunately, because the richer the society is, the more it has lots of poor people as well. There's this dichotomy still. There's therefore increased homelessness, increased violence, and increased crime. So I'm not going to talk about this because we don't have time for everything. Let's move on. So strong traits and weak traits, okay? The strong traits include an old thing called common sense, which is very British, okay? They consider it a virtue to have basic common sense. And then you have intelligence can be practical and intellectual. You have good education, politeness, community spirit, which is a bit dying due to excessive number of people coming from different cultures that don't have these values, but it still exists, right? And tolerance and inclusiveness, as I discussed before, and multiculturalism, right? Weak traits include aggressiveness. The English, they don't just complain about things, they go to action, right? So they can become sometimes quite aggressive, not just in speech, but physically, right? Not always well channeled, so you can see that there's some bellicosity there, right? Some bellicism that needs to be recycled. There is sometimes some hypocrisy in the English, not so much in the Scottish and the Irish. The Scottish and the Irish tell you in the face what they think, but not the English, because they don't consider it polite. That is the problem. So there's a bit of arrogance sometimes, but when it exists, funny enough, I discovered that it's covering an inferiority complex that sometimes comes from the fact that they live in an island. And so it's a bit, the continentals, the Europeans, we live in an island, and they have a bit of an inferiority complex sometimes, which is patent even in sports sometimes, funny enough. Right, so London holothosine. London doesn't have one holothosine, in my opinion, it has many. Even in the same street, you can find different areas with different holothosines, but it is difficult to identify just one. But I would say that because it's the most cosmopolitan city on the planet, it has maybe the strongest holothosines are, medication, money, and multiculturalism, okay? It is not easy to spot racism or xenophobia, but it exists, it still exists, it's not perfect, right? And people are generally sometimes even over polite, they are friendly, generally, very well read, very cultured, and very well traveled, okay? So this thing is interesting. If you go to London, try to go out of the circuit that is the tourist circuit. Try to really go deep into different areas because there are many different Londons in London, and this is really very interesting. So just a few images to give you an idea. Look, God is able is a haircut salon, right? And this is in an area called Whitechapel. So it seems that you are in a Muslim country. And it's a funny one here. I'm from East London, so we don't do calm. This is where I used to live. We don't do calm, we get stressed, right? So you have lots of different things. Look, this is Portobello Road Market. This is the British Museum. And this is, you know, people that are in favor of not leaving European Union. So lots of, you know, when people want to complain, they go out in the street and they're, you know, in the thousands, okay? These are the churches being transformed in houses. So what is the nation Holokarma, right? The main thing for me, in my opinion, is imperialism, right? If you had 53 colonies that are now in the Commonwealth, okay, there is something there, but I think that they are in the recomposition phase already. So because they are trying to make things work for all these countries. And the country went through 2 world wars. So there's also a karmic things there, you know, involvement with many different nations, right? And one interesting thing is there's always on TV a program every week about World War II, so that people remember what happened and try not to repeat the same mistakes, try not to go to war again. Okay, so this is still very strong, and you feel that they really still, there's lots of people suffering from you know, having gone through the wars, and they honor their dead. You know, the people from World War I and II and the Falklands War, you know, there's Poppy Day that, you know, the dead are honored, and it's really a very strong thing. So they are in recomposition with other nations, also such as Germany and France through the EU. So if they leave the EU, it's, you know, lots of things are said, you know, leaving the EU, if that happens. One other interesting thing, there are many portals in the city to the Veratrosphere in London. So if you go there, be prepared to do lots of vibrational states during, before and after going to certain places, like for instance, the London Bridge. If you go underneath, you know, it's, you can even see and hear the consciences in suffering, you know, there. So you can see, you can hear if you develop your clairvoyance, but, you know, do a lot of vibrational states. Right, so holokarmic responsibilities, obviously I'm putting myself here, right? What is my case? So I am sure that I had previous lives in the UK, not just one, because the love that I have for the British Isles in general, the language, the culture, the peoples there, there's no explanation. For me, that's where my heart is. You know, I'm not Portuguese, I'm Londoner, right? So I've had involvement certainly with the Celts, with the Druids, with the Roman occupation, with the Northern invasions, with the Norman conquests. So these are things that I'm trying to study now. There are other historical periods that are important for me, like the period of the reign of King Richard Lionheart, because I'm studying the Templars as well, and the Crusades, and Elizabeth I. This was the first book that I bought with my own money when I was 16. So I started studying English history then, and also the Reform. Another area of research for me is the lives of Madame Blavatsky, so the creator or co-creator of Theosophy, and also Florence Nightingale, okay? And then, what are challenges to intermissivists? So London offers the best in life, the best in the world, and also the worst. So you have to be prepared to choose well, right? Because you can lose your Proexis there, or you can gain, you know, depends on you. So take advantage of all you can learn, because it's a huge laboratory, right? It's a huge thing, and you can have a fantastic experience. and you can maybe recompose and reconcile certain things from your past lives, right? But choose wisely, right? Everything is super fast and changes very fast as well. But in the end, less is always more, in the sense that don't try to cram many things in the same day. Try to do less things and go deeper. That's what I would suggest. And just beware, because there is a strong underworld, so beware of it, right? So a few tips for the intuitivists. Be true. The UK people, especially the English, they appreciate this very, very much. If you are true, if you are honest, if you are genuine, they will accept you. They will love that, okay? So if you go and move and you stay there for a while, the first year, as they told me, they are trying to see who you are, and then when they know you, they trust you, okay? And they're like, if you are, genuine, okay? So never forget politeness. This is very important. There is something that sometimes we have to learn because it's not in our culture. Tone down your speech. Be a comedian. Everyone needs to be a comedian. You have to learn how to laugh about yourself, right? And have good humor, tell some jokes, some anecdotes, and they like that. Do not forget that for clarification, sometimes you have to use a little bit of consolation first so that you can clarify next. So don't be too rude on approach, I would say. Respect all, help all, be kind. It's a wonderful lab, so for you to develop your parapsychism, so you will learn a lot. You will always have nature to recharge because you have these lots of parks, lots of gardens everywhere. So this is very good. It makes you feel really well. And people are also less stressed once you come out of London, and you can do lots of little tours around London. So prepare yourself to become multiculturalist. If you're not yet multiculturalist, I think if you live there for a little while, you will become, right? And then, yes, before energetic word, we're open for questions and answers. Please, feel free.
They can leave the chat or
anywhere they want.
Only right. People from here
Questions?
participate too. You can write.
Yeah,
so people can listen better. Okay, but you can. Okay, Thais Elena is talking about explanation.
Okay, yes, good.
So just a very nice talk.
Thank you.
They can't hear though, can they?
I don't know.
Yeah, just because the UK has many strong trades, multiculturalism, and numerous achievements. They're kind of like a world leader in many different areas around the world. And they've been a dominant power in the past, and
still
and
are
now. Also, this idea of that it seems because of all of this that they contain an element of being a leader, of superiority, right? Which comes from being colonizers, and even though they have a Commonwealth, they're kind of like the leader. And what do you think about all this?
I think that on a daily basis, and when you're there and you live there and stuff like that, you don't feel that they have that kind of posture, which is really nice, because they are not, we are the best. They are not like the French or even the Germans sometimes in that respect, especially the French is a bit more. No, the English are not like that. This is one of the reasons why I think they have a kind of even an inferiority complex, But yeah, so they are still very much, one of the things about the European Union, for instance, is that it was really, or it is really very important that they stay there and not just, otherwise, we just, the strong countries that are German and France. It kind of brings a balance if the English are there too. You see, that would be It's more positive also because being together is better than being apart, right? Working together is a lot more important, you know, and if you are in a recomposition phase, it makes all sense. It doesn't make sense to leave. You know? It's important for the recomposition itself with the other countries of the European Union, which are already almost 30 countries. So, holokarmically speaking, it's also very important, right? I think.
There another question from Rimar.
Yes, please.
Just can repeat them because they are not.
Oh, okay.
What do you mean when you say beware of the underworld?
Beware of the underworld. I mean that there is a nightlife very strong in London, and there's lots of things that especially young ladies should be careful. Like if you go to a bar or a disco or something like that, it's very common that you have guys spiking drinks for girls and things like that. So it's really dangerous. And also, you know, on a different note, you have these. There are some kind of places in the city that you feel there is the baratosphere is very, very present there. So you have to work a lot with your energies, not to get contaminated, right? And sometimes you even see things. For instance, for me, even once this guy knew that I knew about energies and that I knew about him, and he started persecuting me in the street, a physical guy. But the extra physical that came with it was unbelievable. So I started accelerating the energies, accelerating the pace, and it was a very long street that I had to go until I got rid of him. So there are all sorts of things, but as I say, it's a big lab. You learn so much. It's just invaluable. It's so much, you know, there's a lot of stuff, interesting stuff.
There's a question by Selena.
Yes.
Why are the hypocritical sometimes
Hypocrite. Why are they? Because it's in the culture, really, in the sense that they don't say something that is unpleasant just because it's unpleasant. It's not polite, and you might get offended and things like that. So it's in the culture. So they don't say it. They say it after they're drunk, kind of thing. Or behind the back. Yes, but not so common. I've noticed, no. But one of the things that they do, like, you know, is, okay, let's have some drinks. That means, okay, so after 6 o'clock, you go to the pub, and then when they're drunk, they tell you in the face what it is. That, you know. So sometimes this thing has to do, it's cultural, right? It's not that they want it. It's cultural. You don't, if you're going to hurt the other, you don't say it. And with more people with more Celtic origin, they are different in the way they think. They're more direct. They think and they say. Sometimes it's wrong, but you know, it just comes out. Yeah, I think this, and that, and then you sort it out. You know, it's cultural differences, just that. And we, in a city like that, you have to learn to live with those old cultural differences because there's so many, right? People from all over the world. Everyone has a different culture. So you have to learn how to interact with everyone. Yes, so this is.
Hi, everybody. Yeah. What do you think if you consider the best traits in the culture of UK?
Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine any connection with extra-physical communities?
There's, yeah.
Think about which best traits from the culture in UK. Those traits, would you be able to connect?
Traits.
With it?
Yeah. So if we think of the best traits, right, of the UK, you also had a community that was very active extra-physically there, above Tintagel, right, which was, what is it called? Pombal? I think it was Pombal, right? So it was there for some reason, right? And many of us have been there probably, right?
for instance, which trades
Which trades?
perform?
I think this openness, these all these things that it's educational, it's in the intelligence that is both intellectual and practical, and all this multiculturalism, all this openness is something that is multidimensional.
For instance, for me, it seems that the power, the value of the individual liberty, the freedom of an individual, I think that it seems to me that in England, this is very important.
It is. Very much so. To be free for them is something. I mean, the thing that everyone knows about is the Magna Carta, which gave them their liberties. There are no written laws like in other countries. It still all refers to the Magna Carta, and they want to be free, and that's the main value, kind of.
And I'm always curious about this relation with the innovation, science. And so England, UK in general, they have very good artists, and especially in the field of science.
Yes. It's fabulous because if you think of it, it's the cradle of science, right? It's the cradle of science, really. So education has always been a very strong trait, right, in the culture for many centuries. And this has built a culture as well, right? And then, intelligence is something, everything is processed, right? Even intelligence, practical, intellectual, blah, blah, blah. It's all, it grows over time, so to speak, right? And science, even today, for instance, the area of Islington in North London is like Silicon Valley in the US, right? You have their robotics, you have the artificial intelligence, you have people doing these arms for the robots and things like that. So it's science and technology these days, right? Science and technology. So there's a lot of innovation, but also I think the aspect of multiculturalism also helps because as they say, not everyone, but the majority, fortunately, is this richness of people that come from all over the world that make the country rich, that come and contribute. Everyone, it's not, just the English do that. It's not like that. You have people from many different countries working, in each company. I mean, the company where I was, we had lots of Pakistani, Bangladeshi, Sri Lankan, Indians, and then people from many different countries in Europe and from America, from Canada and things like that. So it's multicultural, even in small units, kind of, even in a small company, let alone a big one. So it's not all about the English, it's about everyone that is coming and creating this commonwealth, so to speak, as well for, for all. And this is another thing that can be lost if, if they leave Brexit, it's going to be, people are going to lose with that. So the young people, they don't want to leave, right? Because they say, no, these guys voted wrong, these guys, we want our future. And our future is being together with everyone. We want to, be able to receive and be able to go out everywhere.
Personal question, how do you see the impact of Brexit on humanity?
I think there's a lot of confusion. I mean, because I feel a bit like there's half of the people are, well, in the beginning, like half of the people were for and half of the people were against. And now things are changing a bit. I think if they do, a referendum again, probably they'll lose, those that want to leave. Because these are more like the people that live in the countryside and the older people, right? And they have this strange idea that as if a country could go back 50 years or something and be the England that they knew when they were born or something, which is, it doesn't happen.
But in a way, they're going to lose opportunities.
Oh, yes, yes. I mean, the impact is huge. It's huge. Even if they leave, there's so much they have to pay to the European Union, and some of the companies that had their headquarters in London already left, and now they're leaving to France, either to France or Germany. But thing is also, if the English leave, the English is the official language of the European Union. This will be lost as well. It will be French or German. And not everybody speaks French or German. There's minorities, right? Everything will change, and I think not for the best. So, multidimensionally speaking, you know, multiply this by many more consciousness, intra and extra physical ones.
Closing the frontier, so people from Britain cannot stay in another part.
Yes, they will have to close the borders, and one of the main problems that they're facing now is exactly with Ireland, because Ireland, there are two islands, Northern Ireland, South Ireland, right? The south of Ireland is an independent country, is a republic, right? And Northern Ireland still belongs to the UK. So they will have to have a border dividing the country. And this is going to be very complicated. On top of it all, because the Scottish, they want to stay in the European Union. And Northern Ireland wants to, Southern Ireland wants, obviously, is staying in the European Union. So it kind of gets, it's like tearing apart the tissue, right, of the whole British Isles anyway. So the consequences are huge. We cannot even maybe see and imagine, you know, all the consequences. Yes, 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 yes. Some people feel good, some people feel bad. It depends on your past lives there, I suppose. I felt wonderfully well there. I remember there's still a bit of the wall of one, you know, garden that was a walled garden and stuff like that. And I fell asleep on the, you know, I slept there, you know, for a while in the sun. It was really lovely. I passed the test.
How does it work differently in London?
In London. So the, yeah.
Was it for you or you lost?
No, you have to work harder, you know, you have to work harder because there's a lot of diversity, as I was saying, all these, you know, you have to work a lot harder. Actually, the first time when I moved there, one of the things that I felt when I was leaving the plane itself was the heaviness of the energy of the city. It kind of was a weight on my shoulders. What is that? So I started moving the energy immediately. And it's, so, no, even leaving the plane and then going in the airport, you know, you already feel the heaviness of it, kind of. So you have to work a lot with your energy. But obviously, because there is so much diversity, different parts, even of the same street, you can have like 3 different holothosines there, and 3 different, you know, you move the energies really well in one part of the street, and then in the middle not, and then at the end. It's amazing.
What about the Stonehenge area?
Stonehenge area, I absolutely loved it as well. The energy there is so, I felt it very subtle, very pleasing. You really feel good. But you know that the Druids, it's a comeback, so they still do Druidry there. I mean, they still do some functions there these days. There's groups that go there. You know, it's when the seasons change, right? That kind of thing. But the energy is really nice. I think it was really nice. Yes.
Anything about the old library in London?
The old library, I only know photos, unfortunately, because I've not been to Ireland. I've been to Scotland, not much, just to Glasgow, but I have not been to Ireland, unfortunately. Because when you start working, right, you don't have so much time to go around. So when you have visitors coming, and then you go and show them stuff.
Okay, and how about the chakra that Professor Waldo was saying?
Oh yes, that is that one.
The environment, the
It's
transport museum.
exactly in the transport museum. The thing is, the museum has been refurbished. Before the refurbishment, it was very easy because you could pass close to it and feel it, right, and be on top of it almost with your feet. So you could feel that very easily. Now they refurbished the museum, and you cannot go through that area where it was. So it's not so, you feel the energy is kind of, but it's not, you could go there and feel it with your hands and your feet, and now you can't.
We didn't enter, and even outside, the energy was different.
Yes.
And, really, really good.
Yes, but when you could go there right in the spot, it was fabulous. Okay, thank you very much. Yes. It is indeed very, very interesting, yeah.
Another question, Fernanda. Now we are going to close. This is the last question, okay? Because we are going to start the report, okay? What are the 5 levels of depression and mental illness? What do you think about that?
Right, these levels are all due to stress. So that's already, there's many studies and published, right? So it's all related to stress. People there work very, very hard and long days. So I remember, so I used to work 12 hours a day, every day of the week and the weekend. So it's crazy, right? And some people, they have more, lower class, to make ends meet, they have to have more than one job. So they work 2 jobs and 3 jobs and things like that. So people work a lot. So you get a lot, very much stressed. And this has an effect that is both physical and psychological. And psychological, I found out with my own health that, right, I got repetitive strain injury in both arms. And that as side effects comes anxiety, depression. So you have to have physiotherapy and psychotherapy simultaneously to be able to recover. So, and it's all related to stress. It's all about stress levels.
Sorry.
2 minutes more. Let him do the last one. Oh, come on, Frank. Last one. We have 2 minutes.
Professor Waldo, talking about energetic signature in a train station.
In a
Train station.
train station. No, I'm sorry, I don't, because I'm not very familiar with the train stations there. Sorry. Do you remember which train station there was? No. I don't know. Near a museum. Oh. But was it a tube station or a train station, really? Underground. Okay. Thank you for everyone, your presence, online and in presence in here. We are going to work with the energies to de-assimilate stuff, and, get. Okay. So, can we dim the light, please? Or even out. Okay. So, let's find a comfortable position on your chair, back straight, always best. Loosen your arms, relax your shoulders and your neck. And let's start moving the energy from your feet to the top of your head. Let's bring all the energy there. And concentrate all the energy in the head. And now let's move it down to your feet. And now back to the head. Let's find your own internal rhythm Each person has a different one, but keep moving the energies and accelerating between head and feet. Until you reach your vibrational state. Okay, keep focus. Right, let us now gradually stop moving the energy up and down, and let us exteriorize the energy in all directions in space. Either constant or in pulses. Just exteriorize your energies. Okay, now let us stop exteriorizing and do the opposite technique. Let's absorb the energies from these energetic fields all around us, the multidimensional energetic field. And that's it. Okay, we can now stop doing that. Let's come back. Everyone okay? Right. Okay, I just want to take the opportunity to invite you to the International Week, which is going to happen this year in Foz do Iguaçu from the 16th to the 25th of August. And during this week, we have, so it's more than a week, it's 10 days. We have lots of different activities, all in English, so it will be good to practice your English as well. We have many people coming from abroad already enrolled. You can start enrolling now. Those who haven't done it yet can start enrolling now. And I don't have the time to speak about all the activities, do I? Maybe?
You can talk about this in advance.
Okay, yes, we are going to start with this existential audit, I call it. Yes, it's an evaluation. We are going to have in the middle of the week also a very interesting activity in the waterfalls, you know, Foz do Iguaçu, the waterfalls with our biologist and conscientiologist Robert Leinig, and obviously a team of helpers. There are many other courses and activities, many activities also for free. Not everything has a price, but the prices are very good as well. And then at the end, we are going to have a complementarian, and that is going to be very good for sure, right? One of the best courses probably that we have. So that's it. Thank you, everybody. Let me just pass to Virginia. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for your presence. Next month, we are going to be here. Okay, and we have here the next speaker, Ulises. Please come with us and do the invitation for the people who are going. Hello. What's the topic you are going to present? Yes, yes.
Hello, everybody. So next month, we will talk about the Guarani culture. It's an Indian group from South America, and we will try to develop a lot of connections with Conscientiology. That's it.
Okay. Thank you very much for your presence, and we'll see you next month in the fourth Sunday of the month. Okay, thank you very much. Ciao, people.
Thank you. Bye-bye.